Okay, so just a quick discussion about the controllability matrix, right, and what it really represents and so on, right? So if you look at the controllability matrix, I think it should be here in one of your lecture slides. Right, here we go, right? So this is what the controllability matrix looks like, right? So what you do is you take your B matrix, multiply it into your A matrix, and what you see here is each column, the power of A is going from 0. So this was when A equals 0, this is A equals 1, and all the way to T minus 1, where T is basically the number of states that you have, right? So for example, if you have if you have 3 states, your controllability matrix will look like this, right? It will have a B, and then AB, and A squared B, right? If you had 2 states, your controllability matrix will look like this. A into A will be your first column, your second column is going to be AB, right? And if you had a 4-state system, your controllability matrix will look like A, AB, A squared B, and then A cubed B, and so on, right? And that will make up the columns of your controllability matrix, right? And what we do to check if your system is controllable or not is we look at how many rows are linearly independent from each other, right? So what that means is, let's say you had a 2 by 2 controllability matrix, right? So you had 2 states and your controllability matrix looks like this. Like once you calculate your controllability matrix, it looks like this, right? So we count the number of linearly independent rows, which is what we call the rank, right? So here we have 2 linearly independent rows. What linear independence means is that you can't take one row and make the other row by just a multiplication and addition of values. You can't make the second row out of this, right? So for example, whatever I multiply into this row, I can't make this top row out of this row, right? And vice versa. As a counter example, if I had this as my controllability matrix, right, I can either divide this row by 2 or multiply this row by 2 and get the other row, right? So the number of linearly independent rows in this is just 1. Here it's 2, right? You have 2 linearly independent rows. Here we don't have any, as in the rank of the system is just 1, because we just have 1 linearly independent row, right? So we say a system is controllable if your rank is a full rank, right? What we mean by full is that if this rank number here equals the number of states that we have, then we say it's a full rank system and the system is controllable, right? If you have a controllability matrix that looks like this, right, which is not full rank, this system is not completely controllable, right? So then you guys must be asking yourselves, like, what does controllability mean? How does this controllability matrix really tell us if a system is controllable or not, right? So what controllability means is essentially that we can externally control each of the states in our system, right? So for example, if you had a system with 2 states, x1 and x2, through feedback, we will be able to control x1 and x2, right? Or place the poles of our system wherever we want to place them, right? So how does feedback control work? We have our system, right? In this case, we have a discrete time system. Right, and then this is what the open loop system looks like, right? But then if we want to do pole placement or some sort of closed loop, we sample the states, right? And then we put a gain matrix K, and then we feed it back, right? And what we do is we make U equals minus Kx to do pole placement. So what happens then is state space model starts to look like this, right? We'll have AXK here, and instead of BU we'll have minus BK BK. Basically U has to be substituted by this value, minus BK XK, right? And then what you have is A minus BK here into XK, right? Sorry about my handwriting, right? Again, we'll not worry about the reference value that we put in here, right? We discussed that before, but pole placement actually happens in this with this gain matrix K, right? So what you do is this gain matrix K affects our overall A matrix in our system, right? So that allows us to place the poles wherever we want, right? But although I say wherever I want to place my poles, that's not always the case, right? Sometimes if the system is not fully controllable, I won't be able to place the poles wherever I want to. I might only be able to control one of the poles rather than all of them. And a very good example of that is the sixth tutorial that we did. If I can open that up, hold on. Right. That was a very good example of a system that is not fully controllable. So if you go back to the video or try this question again by yourself, question 1, right, you will understand how controllability affects how controllable a system is, right? Once you check the controllability in this question, you'll see that it's not controllable, right? You'll see that the rank of the controllability matrix is 1 less than the rank it should be, right? And then you can still perform pole placement, but when you perform pole placement, you'll see that you actually can't place the poles, both these poles. You can only end up placing one of these poles. The other one is already chosen for you in the system itself, right? So what the controllability matrix does is it tells you how many independent states are there in your system. In essence, how many independent states can you control externally, right? If the states are not independent from each other, you can't control all the states, right? What that means is if you try to control one of the states, it's going to automatically affect the other state, right? So essentially what that means is your system is not fully controllable. You can't control every single aspect of it. You can try and control one of the states, but it will automatically affect the other state, if that makes sense. I would suggest going through question 1 again, watch the video and look at the answer to this, and try this question yourself as well, because you have to derive these things all by like hand calculations. You will see a pretty good example where a system is not controllable and how that really impacts pole placement and how it impacts your ultimate attempt at controlling the entire system, right? So intuitively, just in short, in a very qualitative kind of way, what the controllability matrix says is how many independent states can I control externally, right? And if your rank is not full rank, what that means is your states are interdependent on each other. They are not all independently controllable, right? So if you try to control one set of states, it's going to automatically affect the other, right? So the controllability matrix is a pretty good way to see if you can control everything, whether you have full control over system or not, right? So I hope that answers your question. If it's not clear, we can discuss it further. But since we're running out of time right now, let's discuss the answer to the question, right? So let's look at question 2, LQR control. So we have a state space model given here, right? And we've been told that this is a discrete time state space model, right? So we start off by writing out the matrices, basically the information that has been given to us. This is the starting states, right, the initial states, and then just like in the previous question where we built a loop to see how these states evolve with these case steps, what we're going to do is we are going to do the same thing in this question. We've been told that there are 20 steps, time steps, right? K equals 1 to 20. So what we're going to do is create an empty zeros matrix again in the dimensions 3 by 20, right? So it's going to just look like this so that we can fill it up with the different time steps, right? So we're going to do LQR control here, right? I hope you guys remember how LQR control works. Again, if you don't, you can watch the video where we did that spaceship that kind of controls the rotation of the spaceship based on this Q and R values, right? So we start off by defining a state space system, right, where we just give A, B, C values, and the D value is 0, right? So we just put an empty vector there. So in all the questions that we've done so far, you can see that the D is the D value is 0, right? So D essentially means in our state space model, right, for your output, sometimes the input could also affect it, right? So let me see if I can find a state space equations. Yeah, see, right? So this is what a full state space equations look like, but we usually kind of consider the output to be independent from the input. So this term is generally 0, which is why I don't usually write it when I'm describing the state space models, but you should have a DUK here as well, but it's usually 0, right? But when you're in MATLAB and you're defining a state space model, sorry, you usually have to say 0 here, right? Or give it an empty vector like this, right? Okay, so what we've done is we've defined these A, B, and C matrices. We have our initial states. We have some empty matrices that we can fill things up with. We have our Q and R parameters, which we can then tune, and we have our state space model, right? So initially, if you want, you can check how stable our system is, right? You can say is stable and say sys, right? And if I run this, you can see that our system is not stable, right? You have a logical 0 here, which means our system is not stable, right? You can also plot our states over these 20 time steps and actually see if the system is stable or not. I'll actually do that here, right? So if I actually plot this out here, you can actually see it not being stable as well, right? So if I run this and plot these values, hold on, I'll comment this out. So this is like the open loop system, right? I'm not doing any LQR. I'm just going to look at the open loop system, right, with a 0 input and see how the states evolve. Actually, let's give it some sort of input. And you can see that the system is completely unstable, right? The states are all blowing up uncontrollably, right? So we saw that. We can look at the eigenvalues and see that as well. So if I type eigen A, you can see that there is this value that is greater than 1, right? Since it's a discrete time system, if you have an eigenvalue that's greater than 1, we have an unstable system, right? Or you can just use this is stable function and it will tell you whether it's stable or not, and you saw that it just gives you an output of 0, which means the system is not stable. So the open loop system that is described here in this question, in question 2, right, these parameters gives us an unstable system, right? So what we're going to do is we're going to use LQR and find the optimal poles that we can place this at, that it will become stable, right? So this is what it looks like in an unstable state. So what we're going to do is we're going to use the LQR function, right? We used this before last week, and we are just simply going to put the system in, and then we're going to put the Q and R values. So the Q and R values are up to you to kind of tune, as we saw last time, depending on how much we want to penalize performance versus how much we want to penalize effort, right? And then what we do is we, instead of the open loop system that we just saw, we create a closed loop system like this, right? So in a closed loop system, the equation is our input becomes equal to minus kx, right? So instead of open loop system where we didn't have feedback, now we have this feedback in this k matrix, right? That LQR function automatically finds for us. And all we have to do is our system has to be defined as a xk, and instead of u into b into u, we have b into minus kx, right? So that's the control part that we are adding into this, right? And we are creating this closed loop system with feedback, right? Because we are equating the input to minus b kx, right? And now if we plot this out and record all the outputs, and we actually plot how the states are changing and how the output is changing, you can see that actually we should give this hold on. Yeah, we should give some sort of input to this as well, I think. Yeah, so now you can see that the system is, instead of blowing up, comes to a stable kind of state, right? Actually, instead of doing this, what we can do is very clearly we can do like a step input to show you how the system behaves. So if I do this and I run this, right, this is what the step response of the open loop system looks like. You can see that it's completely unstable. And then if you want to look at the step input of the closed loop system, I take our system is going to be, so if I want the closed loop system, I'll say SISYS closed loop, and instead of A we have A minus B K, right? And now if I run this, you can see that the new step input, sorry, P into K. Yeah, sorry, I've put the same open loop system here. Okay, so if I put the closed loop system and look at its step input, you can see that now it's not blowing up, it's coming and settling down on some steady state value, right? So you can analyze this using the step input, or you can go and record about 20 steps, right? And give some sort of reference value, right? Some sort of reference value like this, let's say 50, or in the case of step input, this will be 1, right? We are inputting a reference value of 1. And then you can see that it will kind of evolve in the same way, right? So the output will come and settle down somewhere here rather than blowing up uncontrollably, right? So I will, so that's it really for this question. What we did is we defined the ABC matrices. We looked at the open loop system, it was uncontrollable. Then we used the LQR function based on the Q and R values we provided. It provided us with a K matrix that will place our poles and stabilize the system, right? And then we plotted out the states and we looked at how the states evolved. And you can either do that in a loop by recording the states over these 20 periods of time, or you can just look at the step input. We talked about step input in last week's class, where you give an input of a step like this, that looks like this, and we look at how the output behaves, whether it blows up or whether it comes and settles down to a certain value, right? And we saw that the closed loop system settles down in a proper value, right? So I will upload these answers. I think they've already uploaded the answers here. I'll I think need to redo the question 2 answer to include some sort of I'll include all this other stuff like the step input, as well as like this reference value I think needs to be added. So I'll kind of redo that answer and I'll upload it by tonight. But yeah, question 1 should be okay. Question 2 answer needs to be edited a bit. I'll do that and I'll upload it tonight. But yeah, that's the end of tutorial 7. If any of you want to discuss your projects after this, we can start a separate Zoom call, because I think this is currently run by Liang and he's probably wanting to work as well. So we'll end this Zoom call and I will send an email to, I already got a few messages about like one-on-one sessions, so I'll send you guys an email and organize a separate Zoom call for that. All right.